right, and at 5 o'clock, so I will call to order the zoning adjustment board meeting, City of Ocean Springs, Tuesday, November 14th. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the October 10th meeting. Anybody have a minute to look at those and would like to make a motion?
I can make a motion to, I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
All right, motion to approve, we have a second. Motion and a second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is old business, and we have none. So we'll move on to new business. First item on the agenda is 921 Ocean Avenue, parcel ID number 60137394.000, a certificate of appropriateness for signage. And Wade, if you'll introduce the request.
Okay. This one is a bit unique. I don't think that this type is of exception has come to y'all before, but it relates to a section of the UDC regarding signs in historic districts. And what you're being requested to do is to approve an exception to the historic district sign regulations. So it's similar to a variance, but it is a exception to the regulations. And the property you can see is the First Presbyterian Church of Ocean Springs. And what this relates to is the maximum sign area for church and school signs based on the UDC requirements. This has been to the Historic Preservation Commission already, which is why it is now coming to y'all. What the church is requesting are, well, that concerns you, are the two name signs on Ocean Avenue and on Washington. The one on Washington will contain the name of the church, the Treehouse Montessori School, and the Children's House Montessori School. It's in the same location as the existing one. And the sign on Ocean Avenue, you can see there at the lower photo, those are the existing columns that are where the sign is to be located. Now, the reason this is before you is that the two proposed signs, the name signs, exceed the maximum sign area that are permitted for church and school signs by the UDC. The one on Washington is to be 30 square feet in area. The standard UDC permitted sign area for church and school signs in historic districts is 12 square feet with maximum 6 feet wide. The Washington one complies with the width, but the height at 5 feet pushes it over the limit of 12 feet. For Ocean Avenue, that sign is 15 square feet. Instead the allowed one would be 12 square feet. So as I said, they both exceed the maximum area for signs, not the width of it though. In this situation, in situations where the signs proposed exceed what the UDC would allow, allows the Historic Commission to make a recommendation that it go to y'all for an exception. The criteria are that the signs have to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the historic districts and to be historically accurate. That's that when the Historic Commission heard this at their October 12th meeting, they voted to recommend approval of the signs contingent upon obtaining the exception from you and the Board of Aldermen. The motion passed by a 3-2 vote. And then just in front of the potential motion section, it gives you the what is in the UDC regarding the criteria for signs in historic district. Is that they are the appearance, color, size, position, attachment, and texture should be in keeping with the collective characteristics of structures within the appropriate historic district. This is referring to the historic district. So that's where we are today. This is, like I said, this is the request for exceptions for the 2 freestanding name signs for the church. And I do have representatives from the church here to ask questions and details about it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just real quick, I know you said the motion passed 3-2 for HPC. What was that discussion? Or were you in that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so kind of what was that 3 versus 2 discussion like?
I don't remember what they, it really, well, the discussion was, are the signs in keeping and consistent with what the church needs? I mean, as you see the sign there, there's a lot of information on it.
Mhm.
And I think the church's position is they need it to be of that size to convey that information to people looking for the church, looking for the school, looking for entrances and things of that sort. So it's in addition to these 2 freestanding signs, there also were interior wayfinding type signs that were part of the plan too. So it was a comprehensive review of signs for the property for campus. That was the gist of the, as I recall, the conversation.
Okay.
Another question, this is only about size, or are they exceeding the amount of signage total?
No, the number of signs are consistent, or as allowed by UEC, that since it is a corner piece of property, one sign will be on Washington, the other one's on Ocean Avenue, which is consistent with what is allowed.
All right. Any other questions before we bring the applicant up? You guys will come up and state your name and address for the record, please. And if there's anything else you would like to add to what Wade just said.
I'm Stacy Ramsey. I'm the Communications Director of First Presbyterian Church, and my address is 3601 Reeves Lane, Ocean Springs. Really, one of the things that they had asked us was if we were able to contain everything on a 15 square foot sign. That was the big thing. The reason why we're doing this is the request was from the schools. They had parents, grandparents that were having difficulty finding where we were at. Such a large campus, and when they're coming from, different ends, from Jackson onto Ocean, from down Washington, they weren't sure where to go in. And they wanted more information on the signage, but we did pretty much maximum of what we could do in the smallest footprint possible, where you could still see it driving, 15 to 20 miles per hour down the road. So we tried to still keep it within that footprint and still, showing respect to the historic district, and nothing too, fancy or anything, but just a more identification piece to allow parents and grandparents to find the schools a lot easier.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, if something else comes up, we'll bring you back up. All right, anybody else here to speak for this request? All right, is there anybody here to speak against this request?
No emails.
Neighbor input, okay. All right, further discussion. And Wade, I guess, just going back through kind of this process and the way this came to us, HPC, essentially, they review all the information and they make a recommendation to us, similar to how we make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen in that instance. Okay.
So I got a question. So these are existing signs?
No,
These are,
there is an existing sign on Washington. There's the top photo shows the existing sign on Washington. And the lower photo is where the Ocean Avenue sign will go. They're existing columns that would be there.
And the Washington one would have 2 more destinations below it, or whatever you wanna call it.
Basically, yes.
So so the original sign remains?
No, it will be, the original sign is going to go, correct?
And be bigger, and
I
the wayfinding internal to the property is not anything of our concern, though, correct?
That's correct. Those signs were permitted by the UDC
Right.
with regard to internal signs.
Right, that's not.
All right, any further discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion?
My discussion is, I guess I'm not big on approving exceptions to the regulations without a really good justification. And it seems historic preservation didn't really make a solid decision one way or another as well. That's just my thoughts.
Make a recommendation, but also want to caveat, I'm a member of the church, so I don't know if that's an issue, but I would like to recommend approval of exception to the historic district sign regulations to allow 2 freestanding name signs at Ocean Springs Presbyterian Church to exceed the maximum sign area permitted for church and school signs.
All right, motion on the floor is to recommend approval of an exception to the historic district sign regulations to allow 2 freestanding name signs at Ocean Springs Presbyterian Church to exceed the maximum sign area permitted for church and school signs. Do we have a second?
Oh, I'll second it.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All right, so the motion passes 3-1. This will be on the Board of Aldermen meeting next Tuesday evening.
Next Tuesday.
I didn't know if they would have one next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, what time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock
In
here,
here.
next Tuesday. All right, it will be on consent, so if they don't pull it from the agenda, if they approve the consent agenda without pulling it, you're good to go.
And we'll be alerted, they'll let us know something.
If they don't talk about it and then pass the consent agenda, then you're good.
Okay, thank you.
The
Appreciate
agenda, and the agenda of the packet will be on the city's website.
Yeah.
Kind of like the one that's today, usually it's there
By end
late
of
Friday evening, or certainly by Monday morning will be up.
All right, thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.
All right, thank
All
you.
right.
Next item on the agenda, 1108 Magnolia Boulevard, parcel ID number 61242107900, requesting a variance from the minimum accessory structure setback requirement of 10 feet. And Wade, if you'll introduce the request.
Okay, you can see the property there on the screen. As you can see, it's a kind of oddly configured residential property. And the specific request is for a accessory building, cover enclosure for an RV to encroach, at least a corner of it, to encroach 2.5 feet into the required setback on that rear, the south property line. So the proposal is for the corner of the enclosure to be 7.5 feet from the southern lot line, with UDC that requires 10 feet. Can you scroll down to the side plan a bit? That kind of shows really, keep going. There you go, excellent, okay. A bit more. Okay, the yellow highlight shows the encroachment area. This is somewhat unusual in that the property next door to it, closest to this, is the Gulf Islands National Seashore owned by the federal government. In addition to that property line, there is a 15-foot drain access and utility easement along that along the property line, which the enclosure would extend into. The request has been reviewed both by our Public Works Department and by the park staff too. they concluded that there's no conflict with their maintenance needs. It was not something that access easement was not something that they ordinarily would need, be able to use to get into the park property. And if you're familiar with it, this is actually the closest part of the park property is the access road that runs from Bill Boulevard southward into the park property. So that's summarizes where we are, and the property owners here. If you have questions for him. But you can see this is a unusual piece of property, from a highly period like that, and also with that long southern boundary with the parks, makes for a bit of an unusual configuration. And that concludes what I have to say. If you have questions, I can try to answer, but I do have another meeting to have to run to in just a moment. Okay, Carol's gonna take care of the rest of it.
All right, thank you. Any discussion for the applicant?
I just have clarification, can I get that satellite with the blue and red lines? So the back lot where it goes to the point, I understand that that's government property, but what is that? There's a blue line that's vertical, there's one that's horizontal. So I'm trying to understand where the park property, does it become more towards the street? Does it curve around the back of that?
Those are just different parcel
They're different
lines.
parcels.
That,
All three of these.
that one is below the
Mhm.
Correct, yes.
property in question?
That is-
That's not part of the park. Can't even see.
No, it is part of the park.
These three parcels are all part of the
That
park.
is all part of the park?
Correct.
Okay, that's
And
what I
if you look
wasn't
at
sure.
this, the orientation of that as opposed to a turn, this is just a turn.
Yeah, it would be
So
on
it would be,
the left-hand
yeah,
side.
this is north,
There you go.
this is north here, so.
All right, I just wasn't sure what that big box was below.
Yeah.
That's part of the park. And they have no criteria for any buffers? Okay.
So I'll just clarify, it does look like they're along, if you look at the top of that page, and that's the far west, there is a conservation area, but that is not not on this parcel. So that's on the neighborhood.
Yeah, this area
Yeah.
is, this is their parcel.
Correct. All right, the applicant might come up, please state your name and address for the record, please.
I am Byron Hudgens, 1108 Magnolia Bayou Boulevard. I'm the homeowner and applicant.
Anything you would like to add?
No, just one thing you couldn't really tell in that photo is the neighbor to the north, who's here tonight, our homes are really close together, so I couldn't develop the far end of the property. So all I'm stuck with is the south side, which is the tapered end. So just trying to build an enclosure. The only way to make it really fit was to encroach on the 10-foot setback. So I want to take all the steps necessary to do it the right way.
Mhm.
And felt like this would be the best use of that property, but I want to make sure all parties had no conflict with my request.
So, building pad proposed, how big of an RV are we talking?
It's just a regular, a class A 30, I got, 40 feet on average. I've got a fence that is adjacent to the front of the property. And I was able to move what I want to do closer to that fence line. But it still has a little bit of an encroachment area. So when I got with Wade Morgan about it, you let me know how far we could go. So I'm able to build 43 feet is what I'm trying to do to give me a little bit of buffer, because the goal is to ultimately enclose this to make a full garage for my RV. And to comply with the neighborhood standards, I want it to look nice and be of the same materials and standards of the rest of the neighborhood. So I'm not going to be like a truss metal building. It's going to be something that fits in with the neighborhood and complements the neighborhood, so that, helps property values ultimately, but to give a useful space. So in other words, I want to give myself a little bit of buffer so I can cover this RV, but also have a door to enclose it without being right up against each edge of it.
I'm sure people are concerned it's gonna become like a depot or something.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, just one RV, my RV, and like I said, I want to do it right.
One RV.
So if it's enclosed, that'll be considered an accessory dwelling and
It's an accessory structure.
will it exceed?
That's
I guess that's
something,
nothing we have to worry about, right?
my understanding is this was the only concern with the request.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just one corner of that structure. It would be the southwest corner would encroach into that 10 foot. The rest of the structure would not be encroaching.
Some of the drainage easement, that's assigned to the city? of Ocean
Yeah, and
Springs?
that's where it said Public Works signed off that they would not have a problem maintaining it, even with the encroachment.
Would that normally be like a letter assigned just to clear for your benefit, I mean, for your protection in the future? 10
Yeah, and
years
I'm
from
not
now?
sure what's back there. All the utilities were in front of the houses in this neighborhood, so the sewer, underground, electric, it's all in front along Magnolia Bayou. So that's why Mr. Morgan did try to get a hold of the park to make sure they didn't have something that was back there.
I think if it's a drainage easement, it's just something that they're allowed access at any given
Okay.
moment.
Yeah, the national park just actually cut a fire break about 20 feet wide from Pass Road to Government
Okay.
Street. So they have, I think that might have been why they said it didn't really give them impedance to their access. So they have a lot of access now there.
It is listed as a drain access and utilities, basically a general easement, but it probably would be prudent to get something in writing. We'll do some sort of encroachment letter that I would file because it appears that this is a platted easement. And we have had problems where properties came back, they changed hands, and the banks had a problem with structures being in a platted easement.
Correct.
So, and I'll make a note, but, get with Mr. Morgan, if this ultimately, once it's approved by the board, we would want you to file something.
Right, absolutely. I'd want
To
to be able to
document
have it
that.
documented,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you're not, this discussion is regarding how close you get to the property line. You're
Well-
not changing property lines here, right?
No, it's just that easement.
So this is totally within.
It's inside my property boundary.
Their deal is their deal.
Yeah, and I don't want to, but I want to try to stay away from anything that could allow access.
So I was just trying to make that distinction.
Correct, yeah, I'm not changing my property.
Their property.
lines.
That's-
Any other questions for the applicant?
And you mentioned I guess you have a homeowners association.
Correct, yeah, I got with them first, yes.
Okay.
Probably have an
First step.
architectural review board.
Yeah,
that
we
will look at
did
the
that about
plans.
4 months ago and
Okay.
no objections.
That's usually the hardest.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. All right, if there's no other questions, something else comes up, we'll bring it back up. Thank you. All right. Anybody else to speak for this request? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Mickey Bradley, 1110 Magnolia Bayou Boulevard. I'm Mr. Hudgens' neighbor, and I came here to support his request, and I have no problem. The next door, I have no objection to him on this structure.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public neighbor input?
Nope.
Emails, anything? Okay, all right. Anybody here to speak for? Anybody here to speak against? All right, further discussion. All right, no further discussion. You may like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve a variance of 25% of the minimum accessory structure setback requirement on the south side of 1108 Magnolia Bayou Boulevard to allow an accessory structure to be 7.5 feet from the lot line. Due to exceptional narrowness in the rear of the property. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of the variance of 25% for the minimum accessory structure setback. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and Don a second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes. Once again, this is just like theirs. It'll be on the Tuesday night board agenda in this room, 6 o'clock. It'll also be on consent agenda, so unless somebody pulls it out when they do the overall approval, it'll go that way. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, next item on the agenda, 503 Porter Avenue, parcel ID number 60225050. requesting a 20% variance from the minimum required setback from the property line to build a covered seating area for a restaurant. And Carolyn. you'll
All right,
introduce the
yeah, you
request
get me,
first.
so it's way to manage. Yeah, just as you see here, and again, this is also another structure that has a perpendicular, a straight edge building on a diagonal lot, which kind of, it makes it difficult to expand forward. So the request is to add on to the existing structure to create, the front porch. And, it will be 1 foot 8 inches out within the setback line is the request, so that they can pull that front porch forward. And, you see from the side, the building is not on the same angle as the street. And this is what they're requesting to bring it forward. And Marcus is here to represent the applicant if you have any questions. But it does have the same attributes as the building not being on the same angle of the street. The parcel not really matching that direction.
Thank you. Question, just real quick, Carolyn. So is this a 1 foot 8 inch variance across the entire frontage of the property?
No,
Or
just-
just like in one corner?
Just in that corner.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Carolyn at this time? All right, you'll come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Marcus Thomas, 1911 Stewart Avenue, Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And we are trying to, like Carolyn said, we were trying to create an outdoor seating for this restaurant. And we're requesting 1.8 inches variance. And it's actually one post that we're having problems with. When we built the handicap ramp to the new specs, this post can't be put on the corner where we need it, because it impedes the handicap ramp. So we're really trying to move this post a little forward. And that's basically what we're looking for.
It's this one here,
It's that one right there. And we thought we had a solution early in the week, but it blocks the handicap ramp, which takes precedence pretty much over anything else. So that kind of caused that thought.
Any questions for the applicant?
Well, I mean, the handicap ramp is certainly a positive.
Yes, sir.
1.8 inches is blocking the handicap?
1 foot 8 inches.
1 foot 8 inches.
1 foot, okay,
yeah.
I was gonna say.
1 foot 8 inches.
Okay, yeah, I probably misunderstood, that's fine, thank you.
The previous handicap ramp was made out of wood. We actually did this one with poured concrete, so it's actually a better structure.
How wide is the ramp?
4 foot. Well, 3 foot
Yeah,
plus some inches. We made it a little bit bigger
Right.
with the rails and everything.
and did you, before somebody that approves special needs,
Yes, sir. That was all approved by the planning department, the building department. We pulled permits to build that.
they gave you the, governance or whatever?
Yes, sir. The previous, not to go in the weeds, but the previous one went the other way and it didn't meet the specs. So that's why we had to turn it to go west instead of east.
So would so 25% is our max, right? So that's 1 foot 3 inches?
Well,
So-
I hadn't thought
That work?
about that. Let's say we go this route and if the board approves it, like historic preservation did with all the past one, could we exceed to go out if the board approves it? Or was it-
It's a question, I think we're limited, right? to-
If we did a motion, let's just say to approve hypothetically,
So we could
When we say-
technically only be up 1 foot.
but in our motion, could we say, but if the Board of Aldermen approves 33? Because it sounds like you need this post.
The post is a must.
Right.
And I think, and Carolyn, correct me if I'm wrong, the difference between the HPC thing is that the HPC can just say, this is appropriate,
Mhm.
not with any kind of given variance percentages or stuff. But we can only give 25%. We don't
I
have
got
an
that part.
avenue to say, if, if needed. Now, a question I have, Carolyn, is
How-
this is a porch, technically, a covering?
It's a
Is that
covering,
technically,
well, technically what?
Square footage or part of it?
Yeah, part of
Main structure.
the, structure. Is it not, because can't porches on houses kind of extend
They
into, so.
It has to do, and again, Wade would, have this more memorized than I do, but, there is something for open steps, not have, being able to intrude 50% into the setback, but that's residential. I don't know.
I was gonna
I
say.
have to look into that. That was to accommodate, open steps, especially in cases where they have to be elevated. That was a real problem after Katrina, because obviously you have to go forward if the house goes up. So that was done for residential. I'm not sure how it would apply to this. I'll certainly, have to check with Wade. But this is it's the covering for the entrance, primarily. That's what's intruding into the space, not the seating area,
Right.
just the covering for, is that correct?
That's correct.
The covering for the entrance, not the actual seating area.
So then I go back, let's say tonight, we say, sure, 25% is fine, but that doesn't solve your issue.
If we can move that post 1 foot 8 inches, that everything works out.
So
Oh, what's 25, what's on?
the maximum we can do is 1 foot.
Right.
So we can't
8
say.
inches off.
So he would then appeal what we say, no matter what.
Yeah, you would have to, and you've done this before, even if it makes sense in this situation, it's right, you technically cannot, recommend approval for anything over the 25%. You can, however, say that, you have to recommend denial, due to your restrictions of the UDC. You can make any notes that you want as far as, you understand that, handicap access takes precedent, but that you cannot make that recommendation, and it would have to be an appeal to the board.
Okay.
So,
So
in the meantime, I'll ask Wade to look into that, the difference between the fact that it's for the covering for the steps and not the actual seating area, that is what is encroaching into that into the setback. And I don't know if that makes a difference. That's not something that he and I discussed when he was reviewing this, so, I'll follow up with that as well.
Kevin, we couldn't approve the 1 foot, which we are
You can.
within our grasp, and then with the footnote that explained that they're still 8 inches short of meeting the standards for,
Yeah.
the same thing, except instead of
It would
20
result in the same
yes.
thing, he would have to
He's got to
appeal
go
the
on
approval.
it no matter what.
Yeah. But it's, you're right, it's all in how you couch it. You could recommend approval of the 1 foot, because that is the maximum
Then
you
you already
can.
got that,
Yes.
And then he would appeal that recommendation, and
right,
that's
because that's
more.
not something we can handle anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that would at least let the board know that you
Yeah, that was my,
That would be
agree
great.
with it, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
You don't have to get you the rest of the way.
It's the same legal path.
well, it gives you a little
Have to
freedom
push me over.
Yeah.
to advance in the right directions.
I appreciate that.
All right, any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, on the, that first post, I just looking at the drawing, wouldn't it carry forth that, wouldn't you need the same 1.1 foot 8 inches, the whole length of it? I'm just looking at the,
No, it's right here in the corner.
It's right here at the corner.
And then you see the property line diverges from the building.
All of them appear to be over that roof overhang, and maybe I'm looking at it, maybe we're just
I guess I'm saying, does
not
Yeah.
looking at it.
Do the posts-
Right,
the supports follow the,
because that's what it
Property
looks like to
line?
me, yeah.
The posts follow the property line toward the east, going down for it. But right there at that handicap ramp where it goes down, that's the one if we put it where it goes, it would be inside the handicap.
And I see the confusion, okay, and because this is just kind of hand drawn on there, these posts appear to also be encroaching into
This one's.
Correct,
into the
yes.
right of way. Are
Mhm.
they on the, just inside the setback, and this is the only one that goes in.
That's correct.
Okay, it's just, the illustration is a little misleading, just
Okay.
because it's kind of hand done. So,
So they're on the inside, not the outside.
yes, and we'll need to clarify that in the
In the
motion,
motion,
that
the
the
one
only
post.
post that encroaches is the westernmost,
At
one.
the bottom of the ramp.
That the rest of them need to be
Right,
within
inside the
appropriate
line.
setbacks.
Okay. Any discussion? Any other questions for the applicant? Something else comes up, we'll bring it back up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, nobody else invited to speak for, nobody else invited to speak against the request, so we'll move on to further discussion. Or would anyone like to make a motion?
By the way, the 25% is 1 foot 3 inches.
Correct.
Helps a
Yes.
little bit.
Yes.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
Thanks for the math.
Engineer.
I want to help check record. Check his calculator.
I did.
I can make a motion if y'all are good with
Yeah.
making a motion,
Yeah,
okay?
go right ahead.
I'd like to recommend approval of a variance of 25% from the minimum setback requirement at 503 Porter to allow, let me look at this, the roof structure support of one column on the western end at the base of the handicap ramp to encroach 1 foot 3 inches.
All right.
Due to exceptional narrowness.
Motion is to recommend approval of a variance of 25% to the minimum front setback requirement at 503 Porter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Don, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passes. So if your intent, because you need 1 foot 8 inches, we gave you 1 foot 3. If you need to appeal that, which if you need 1 foot 8, that's what you need to do. You can email Wade
Yeah.
or Carolyn.
Just send Wade an email,
Tomorrow.
say, I understand I got 1 foot 3, I
Mhm.
need 1 foot 8, I'd like to appeal this to the board. That's all I had to
That
say.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right.
All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda is audience request, and nobody in the audience to discuss anything, so motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to adjourn, second. Dawn, second. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
So on the church, there are those signs.